We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Clint Kelly with us, malpractice attorney. If you have a question about maybe a case or someone that you know that had an issue with a doctor or a hospital that maybe didn't quite go right, don't sit on it. There's a statute of limitations. Give us a call and we can talk. Like I said, the line's open. We're going to the break. What was it we were going to touch on?
Nurse practitioners,
right.
Return to that subject because this is an important one. That's the one Joe raised. People don't understand, most of them, when they go to the emergency room, that nurse practitioners are usually the first line of care, the first line of defense, and maybe the only line of defense. And patients don't check the credentials of the healthcare provider that are helping them. Mm-hmm. They're sick. Mm-hmm. Let's just say it's a medical emergency, chest pain, whatever, unconscious. They don't have an opportunity to go look at credentials. You were saying, I wish they would disclose to me. That's what you're talking about. Give me full disclosure. Tell me what your credentials are. If they do that, Nick, what are the patients going to do in response? Not all, but some. What are they going to do?
Well, they may not go to the emergency room anymore.
Or they may leave.
Okay, maybe. But still, if you're sick, you're probably not going to leave. I don't know.
They might.
You think?
They might. I mean, if you go in there, if I went to an emergency room and I were really sick and I found out that there was only a nurse practitioner and I couldn't get seen by a doctor, if I could leave, I would leave because I'd want to be checked by a medical doctor. Even though I trust nurse practitioners and they do great work, I want a medical doctor to sign off.
So you would recommend then if you go, it's the same thing, it's this whole thing about in society where we just defer to the medical community that we trust everything. Notice how, you go to get your car worked on, the first question you ask of the mechanic, how much is it going to fix to take care of that catalytic converter? Okay, you go to the doctor and you've got to have a series of blood tests on your cholesterol. Do you ask him how much that's going to cost? You don't. No. Don't tell me you do, you don't. Why do you ask for your car and not ask how much that darn test is going to cost for the blood? Meanwhile, I'm asking, are you the master mechanic that's working on my car? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Why don't you ask, are you the doctor or the nurse? We don't do it in society. We defer, and the hospital can get away with this, and medical community does. What I say by getting away is, again, we get good care most of the time, but no one asks them, how much is it going to cost, and are you a doctor or not?
I'll give you another scenario. Did you know, when you go into the hospital, do you think that the nurse practitioners and the emergency physicians work for the hospital?
I assume, yep.
Nope.
Because that's what he was talking about, how the hospital may take your insurance, but they may not.
9 times out of 10, the doctor in the emergency room and the nurse practitioner in the emergency rorum does not work for the hospital.
So what are they, private contractors?
Yeah, they work for a staffing company.
And they just put them in there?
Yeah. Then you sue the hospital, and the hospital says, that wasn't our employee.
Is that a level of protection?
Sure it is. They'll write it into the fine print. But the thing is, what the hospitals do, this to me is false advertising.
Yeah.
They'll put a tag on there. What does the tag say?
Yep,
such and such hospital.
Yep.
With a name on it. It does not tell you that the person works for another company. So the hospital represents to the public through these badges that these people are their employees, but then when they get sued, they say, no, they're not.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Now, that doesn't mean that the doctors they bring in aren't good.
No.
Right. But they're misrepresenting that. Does it matter whether or not the doctor treating you works for that hospital or not?
It does from the standpoint of hospital liability.
Absolutely it does. I just meant in terms of treatment, do you think?
No, it doesn't. But there are times when you sue, particularly with something that happens in a hospital, patients should be allowed to sue the hospital and not have to worry about which company provides the doctor to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the way it ought to be because we look to the hospital as being the corporate unit that takes care of us. And going back to what you said, we all believe, at least I do, in full disclosure. Mm-hmm. Just tell us.
Yeah.
Be fair with the patient, just like you tell companies to be fair with the consumer. Just tell us, and then let us make our own choice.
They should tell you, but if they don't, you have a right to ask.
Sure you do.
Absolutely.
But are you going to be asking those questions when you're going in with chest pain?
Right, no. Good point. All right, let's go to Bill. Bill, good morning. Hi, Bill.
Bill, good morning. Hi, Bill.
He's got the
Bill's got
TV turned up. Are you there, Bill?
Bill's got TV turned up.
All right, we're going to have to put Billy down here, and let's see. I'm going to go back. I think I may have hit the wrong button. My mistake. Let's go to Bill. Bill, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that. It's my fault. Okay. You go ahead. You go ahead.
I'm glad you're talking about this. Almost 6 years ago, I had an incident with a hospital here locally, and that they went to a certain doctor. He wasn't there. They put me to another doctor, and then I checked the credentials. I had no idea about the doctor. He ended up going through a surgery. Had to end up going to Vanderbilt to correct the surgery that she had done. Then when I sued, I couldn't sue the hospital. I had to sue the doctor instead of the hospital. I mean, she didn't work for the hospital as much as she did this surgical group that I went to. And there was, had no idea about her credentials or anything at all until after we got into a lawsuit with her and her lawyers.
That's what we were just talking about. Classic
Bill's
example.
Situation is classic, where he does just what any reasonable person would do and bring in a claim, and then finds out after the fact what the employment relationship is, and how the hospital then tries to sneak out of responsibility by saying, well, this guy works for such and such staffing company. He's not our employee, so we're not responsible. The Supreme Court had an opportunity to fix this with what was called corporate liability, meaning that if you go to the hospital, you're entitled to sue the hospital if something bad happens to you there, because people think going to the hospital that all these folks are their employees. But they didn't do that. They kind of stepped up to the line but wouldn't cross it. So I don't want to get too technical here, but if people believe that the care is being provided by a hospital employee, there will be a presumption in that case that the hospital is the employer. So you can make that claim. I do it all the time.
I was going to say, just because they might say he didn't work for us, he was a contract. I was about to say, okay, you can still bring, because I'm going to say that's absurd. And if I'm on the jury and I'm hearing this, it's just like if we bring in a freelance journalist one day, and we don't have freelancers here anymore, but say in a major market in Los Angeles where I used to work. Freelancer comes in. He's an independent contractor for that one day because a bunch of reporters called out sick. And he files a story that libels someone, and they file a lawsuit, okay? I can tell you this, the station I worked for might try, but it's not going to work. Say, oh, well, we just brought him in, and he doesn't really work for us. He's a freelance contract reporter. It's not our fault. Wrong. It happened on your watch. You brought him in. The hospital, you hired him. You brought him in. I don't care if he's a staffer or not. It happened in your hospital. You brought him in. What jury is going to say, oh, he's under contract, so no, we're going to let him off the hook? What kind of idiot jury would come back with that? That is absurd.
Well, it usually wouldn't be the jury.
Well, it's patently absurd.
Find the connection.
The hospital brings them in, they're responsible, period. End of story.
It's the judges that make that
Well, then they're
decision.
stupid.
Well,
I mean, that's just, come on.
Where's
the law for this? No, there's not a law saying that you clear the hospital.
I believe the law should be changed. I believe the law should be that if you're working in a hospital, that you're deemed to be that hospital's employee if something negligent occurs on the premises.
Of course.
Because it's not fair for the hospital to take the benefits of the association of that doctor and then run away from the responsibility.
Is that not completely rational?
Of course it's rational, but the law's not always rational. I'm just telling you.
Don't you love tort reform and all that stuff? Tort reform, it shouldn't be, the word reform shouldn't be used.
Deform.
Yeah.
Tort, they deform the law.
Deform to damage the patient.
Yeah.
And yet the general public buys into it because of the lobbying, and it's just a bunch of crap. Not to protect you, but to protect the big money.
Nick, this is one place where a good board-certified malpractice lawyer makes a difference, because not all lawyers, particularly ones that are not specialized in malpractice, know how to hold the hospital responsible in a situation like. Some lawyers would simply give up once they find out that there's not an agency relationship, a contractual relationship between the doctor and the hospital's employer-employee. I do. And other board-certified medical malpractice lawyers do, because we do this all the time. And we not only know that, we know the means. We have the tools by which to hold that connection together in court to get it to a jury, which, by the way, a jury's always going to find that that person is employee, because juries know better.
Right.
But that's a situation.
You got to get it to that point, though.
That's where specialization makes a big difference.
Excellent point. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, a few more phone calls for you in our final segment. Lines open. If you want to jump in, we'll take them right after this.